I thought I'd record you another video of some writing, especially as we have such a horrible evening upon us. The rain and such made me think of this picture. This, of course, is an AQA style question, as you can see here. This is paper 1 writing. I will do some work on paper 2 as well. But I wanted to focus on this because I think this is the most creative part of the language GCSE and to give you some ideas. Okay, so this is descriptive or narrative writing, certainly for AQA and Edexcel. There are other boards as well that do similar questions, and I think OCR has a slightly different layout on it, but these are the ones that most students sit. Of course, if you've got any other questions about other boards, feel free to post them, but I'm focusing on AQA and Edexcel at the moment. So 45 minutes roughly for this section. It's 40 marks, and I believe Edexcel is the same. So you get a choice of 2 questions for AQA. It's usually one is a description suggested by the picture. Now note the use of the word suggested there. That means that you can embellish as long as it is plausible given what's in the picture. So we're probably not going to be writing about aliens landing, but you may make reference to the people on the ship and how they're responding to the storm. You may make reference to the person that's looking out from the beach towards the sort of the horizon and seeing this. Okay, there's multiple sort of perspectives you can come at this from to make it interesting. But remember, it's still a description predominantly. So you'll focus mostly on the 5 senses and writing about those with maybe a paragraph of a mini story. If you did 5 senses and 1 paragraph of a mini story, that gives you 6 paragraphs. Remember, for 40 marks, it's looking for roughly 6 to 8 paragraphs of writing. I can't tell you how long a paragraph's got to look. It's quality as well as quantity. So remember that. However, I'm going to look at some story writing to narrate. An example I've got with me is shorter than that, actually. It is typed, so it's hard to sort of infer the quantity of writing there. But it probably gives you hope that you can submit shorter examples and still do very well. So this or is write the opening part of a story that takes place amid, that means around, threatening surroundings. It's only the opening part of a story. Note what they say to you. You're not expected to have everything finish and conclude appropriately. You've only got 40 minutes to write it and 5 minutes on top of that to plan it. They're not expecting miracles, so know that. I wanted to show you in Edexcel how this would be structured. You get 2 choices, the same as AQA, and I've picked out there'll be another question. It's usually look at the images they provide you. They're often black and white, so you have to do quite a lot of thinking. Or you get the next bit, which says here, write about a time when you or someone you know, experienced any form of conflict. So that's a nice open scenario there. Your response could be real or imagined. Well, of course, I find the best ones contain elements of things we know, but are often crafted to fit the scenario of the question. Your response will be marked for the accurate and appropriate use of vocabulary, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. I think these AOs are the same on both. You get 24 marks for communication and organisation, content and organisation as well, sort of how what you've written in there, how good it is, and how well you sequenced it. Okay, and that includes vocabulary, which I mentioned before in my previous videos and recordings. AO6 is SPAG, which Edexcel explicitly mention. I think on AQA they do as well. Yeah, here you go. This is the AQA version. So really this question here, threatening surroundings, and this question here, any form of conflict, I'll be honest with you, they're the same question. You can tackle it from various different ways that you may feel appropriate because conflict is a relative term. So it could be a psychological conflict, a physical conflict, whereas in this opening part of a story, threatening surroundings, most candidates, because this is a 1-tier paper, will take inspiration probably from the picture. You could write about a shipwreck as being your conflict. A lot of students will look at this and want to turn it into a story, and this question does give you that opportunity. However, I picked out an example from a prior student who attempted this. Write the opening part of a story that takes place amid threatening surroundings. And we're going to read it and see what we'd mark it. Okay. He's given it a title. Remember, write your story first and then title it last. That's what all novelists, poets, writers do. They don't know the appropriate title till the end. So leave space at the beginning for yourself to do this. Okay, I'm going to read it now. It was a disaster. I didn't know what to do. The scream of wind falling through the whistle of a parcel delivered from cruising altitude, tumbling through the clouds just as Icarus once did. But this, perhaps there's a typo here, rather than colliding, that means sort of crashing, with the salty spray of sea. I like the description. The reference to Icarus, if you've not heard of Icarus, this is Greek myth, he flew too close to the sun and his wings fell apart. If you're not sure about Icarus, Google it. It's nice to have some classical references in your writing, and this student's clearly got that. So Icarus was he's used as a tale of caution. Okay, don't do as Icarus did, really. And it's often referenced to sort of ambition that's got ahead of oneself. So he flew too close to the sun, and that's what caused his wings to disintegrate. The glue that bound them melted. That's kind of how the myth goes, and they associate him with sort of attempting things that are beyond one's abilities, and also being unlucky. The fiery doom is met with sand and brick, an unholy matrimony, I love that phrase, of earth and fire. So there's lots of juxtaposition going on here. That's contrast within the sentences. Brimstone and flesh, bone and shrapnel, all melded and joined under the hot sun. Okay, so I'm getting lots of images here of fire, heat. I had heard it fall unto our home, saw it, felt it. The shockwave engulfed, love that verb, my world as the dust and mortar blew past my face, fleeing the epicenter of destruction. The swell of heat from the blast cooked my eyes and dried my skin, but I cannot turn away. The ash settles, and I find myself, that should be one word, once again looking at our home, or rather what is left. Remember, semicolons you can use instead of and or but. I'm not sure if there would be a full stop there, although it does give me an awkward pause, so it could work. I rushed to the ruins, desperate to find you still intact and breathing and smiling. I scraped with bloody knuckles and broken nails and tear-burnt cheeks and soul and heart, pulled aside every splinter and grain of rubble and debris. I instead discovered remnants, that means remains, of happier times. Remember, colon means equals in English. Letters of fidelity to one another, a holy book preaching upon blind eyes and shattered dreams, cloth from your favourite dress, but you were nowhere to be seen. Beginning to shake, I ask for strength as wind blows past me so fast it lashes and even makes clumps of sand, saturated with spilled blood, float. In this turbulent gale, I look back on our book and scramble forward for guidance. Instead, I find passionless irony born from a passionlessly bonded paper manual. Every soul will taste death. I begin to convulse, that means fit, and moan when, from the corner of my eye, in the depths of desperation, I spy your dainty hand, flirting in the distance. I love the verb flirting there. Just under a support beam, now flaccid, that means sort of floppy, and depressed, where it once held up a roof where, neath our dreams, could reach the sky. I knew instantly it was yours. Only your nails could be so pristine after being smote from the heavens. Only your bracelet could dance off your deep skin as beautiful. Lee, I think that wants to be an adverb. As the day I gave it to you. Walking towards your hand, I raise up the wooden pole, digit by digit, hope high and spirits higher. I toss it to one side only to fall on my back and wail. A practical joke. Full stop. Punctuation. It must be. It must be. I don't know what to do. Very well written prose. I enjoyed it. The language is of a good quality. Okay, this is what I mean when I'm talking about ambitious vocabulary. So let me draw your attention to it. Highlighter time. I liked, yes, altitude, unholy matrimony, bonus shrapnel. I like the juxtaposition here. Okay. Personification of the book, preaching, turbulent, sort of like that picture of the, well, like the storm in the picture of the shipwreck. Convulse, fit, flaccid, floppy. Pristine, neat. Whale to call out. So there's more here, I think, but the vocabulary is excellent. I'm going to reread the questions. Takes place in threatening surroundings. Definitely fulfills that, doesn't it? It's on point. Would it fulfill the Edexcel one? When you or someone you know experience, yes, it's physical conflict, there's burning, and there's trying to get to your loved one by the looks of it. It's a good example. There's not a lot of it. Probably a lot of you will be sitting watching this thinking, how much is there? One, you technically, this line counts as a paragraph, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's technically, I'd say, probably 6 paragraphs worth of writing here. It doesn't go on forever. You're not expected to. I've had students come out of the exam and say, I've aced it, miss, wrote loads. Doesn't mean you've aced it, just means you've written a lot. So be mindful, okay? Give them what they ask for, but you don't need to sort of write forever. What do I think of it? It is convincing and compelling. I'm going to go right up here, to be honest, guys. I think it does match the type, audience, purpose. It's a description. It matches the question. Okay, the question being opening part of the story, threatening surroundings. For sure, it absolutely does. And on this one, yes, that's type, audience, purpose in terms of you're writing narrative. It says write about a time. This to me is narrative. Opening part of the story is narrative. That's the purpose. Okay, so it is convincing and compelling. It's up here. Highly structured and developed. Range of integrated and complex ideas. Yes, fluently. There's a bit on his. I'll probably pick him up here. The student. Some of the spag is slightly off. There's a mild corrections, but not a lot. High level of accuracy in spelling, ambitious vocabulary, yes. Extensive, probably, yes. Standard English, only time it dips out of standard English is where you're looking at the dialogue, with a bit of stuttering. That isn't even dialogue, actually. I correct myself. That is what they call, it would be a internal monologue. It's focalized through the perspective of the writer. It's first person, isn't it? I didn't know what to do, which makes it personal. That's a narrative perspective. I, my, me, that's first. And stories are written in first person, narrative perspective, to be personal and to come straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. This person is suffering, aren't they? And that's what the question's sort of asked for, really. Wide range of punctuation. Yes, they use semicolons, colons. Did they use exclamation marks? And this sounds very sort of perfunctory that I'm checking it in this manner, but you do look at it. So maybe they could have used that. Questions? No questions. Right. So there's little things I'm picking here, but it's not a lot, is there? This is a model, I would say. It's close to a model. I would give it probably an 8 to a 9, probably a high. I'd give it a high 8. I would pull it down on here on the spag. Okay, probably an 8. No, me, I'll pull it down on a 9 because of the spag, but I think it's good and it's interesting. It's very interesting. It's very well written. I'm going to put this up on the group so you can all have a look at it. Maybe I'd write a bit more just to improve it. I'm not sure. It must be. I don't know what to do. And I would check the punctuation on it. There's a fair amount of description and there is events going through it, but it's very well done. So I hope this is helpful, okay, for your narrative writing, but there is some description in here as well. The two cross over a little bit because you can't just tell a story without any description. Okay, that's all.